Chris, where are U.S. corporate customers going wrong in their outsourcing relationships?
It's interesting actually. We have just completed a survey actually with Harvey Nash looking at the views on outsourcing and other topics from about 2,500 customers across a range of different industries. And interestingly, one finding is that outsourcing expectations are only exceeded in 5% of cases. So 95% of outsourcing either fails or to meet expectations or just meets expectations. And I think there's a few reasons for that, Kirk. Firstly, sometimes the wrong functions or processes are outsourced, and sometimes it's done in the wrong way. Sometimes there's too much focus on just cost reduction. There's not enough focus on thinking more strategically about what the value is of outsourcing. Often there's a problem with customer focus, so the lack of a customer-focused approach, not just the internal customer, but also the end customer, the end consumer, whether that's a business or an end consumer. And then finally, I think a key reason why we see a lot of outsourcing failures is due to management problems. So the fact that often the management capability is not there on the buyer side to really get the most value out of a long-term relationship with a vendor, or increasingly multi-vendors, because we're seeing multi-sourcing where you have multiple vendors involved as increasingly a key strategy that a lot of firms are using.
What do firms need to do differently in-house before they engage with these offshore providers?
Most competent organizations, I guess, use a combination of both in-house and outsourced delivery. Really, one of the first steps is for the organization to understand what its business objectives are. What is it trying to achieve in the market? How is it going about that? And once they understand that from a business strategy perspective, then what does that mean for the sourcing strategy and for the shared services strategy or the nearshoring strategy? Other key things they need to do is they need to think about change. Think about how outsourcing and nearshoring can be used to implement change across the organization. Also, make sure you understand the market. The market is very innovative. There's a lot of things going on in the market which a lot of organizations don't understand. And then finally, getting good stakeholder buy-in from across the organization is absolutely critical, and building or buying a team of people who have done this kind of transformation work before is absolutely critical. So getting the team in place to drive the change and to make the outsourcing happen. Those are really the key, I think, things that I would recommend.
Chris, that's an interesting comment about changing culture. What actually has to happen within the organization, and how do you manifest the kind of change you need to adapt to these offshore relationships?
Well, it's a great question, and a lot of the work that we do actually focuses on reassessing what that case for change actually is. Often over time, people do outsourcing deals and transactions. Over time, the value of a deal starts to leak away as perhaps things change, perhaps the business changes, the market's changed, and a lot of firms find themselves stuck in the place which says the contract is really not delivering for me what I need. So typically, the key there is to always think about the business benefits of the outsourcing arrangement against the original base case that was defined, the original baseline analysis that was done, which says, why should we outsource? Or why should we use outsourcing as a tool? Because sometimes outsourcing is not the right answer. But really the key for me is to make sure people understand the business case for doing it and track the benefits of that over time against that original business case, so they can articulate why the outsourcing is important. And establishing the case for change is all the way through the duration of an outsourcing arrangement is very important. And getting all the different players involved, the various customers, the service providers, the buyers, everybody else in the organisation needs to understand, why are we doing this, what are the benefits, and what are some of the challenges, and how are the challenges overcome.
Chris, are U.S. clients changing their commitments toward offshoring because of all the political rhetoric and condemnations coming from politicians right now?
So, that's a great question, and I know we're in election season here in the US, so this is a very big question that people keep asking. I think we're nowhere near in the same place as we were back in 2004, when Lou Dobbs started to raise the spectre of outsourcing and the risks and issues around that. I think staying apolitical for a second, I think one key thing that linked to outsourcing is trade flows, and I think we are seeing that trade flows are in general increasing now around the world, both for outsourcing and for offshoring, and we're seeing more and more free trade agreements put in place between the US and various other countries. I think the macroeconomics of the situation mean that actually outsourcing and offshoring will continue to increase over time, as it has for many, many years. There will be occasions when outsourcing means that some functions are brought back in-house. So we are seeing clients bring functions and processes back in-house, but the net trend is for more functions and processes to be outsourced. And the key thing about outsourcing is that often the job changes from one of doing the job to one of managing somebody who's doing the job, and that at some level is actually a positive development, I think, for the economy, because more value can be created through using outsourcing and offshoring as vehicles to do that.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.